everyone, I'm Lily, and I'm super excited to have you here. Welcome to our channel, Easy Peasy English. If you want to learn English the easy way and speak confidently in real life, you're in the right place. Let's get started with Ryan before you go.
Hi guys, I'm Ryan.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
So picture this. You're sitting there. You can read an English newspaper with perfect comprehension.
Oh, yeah.
Right. You understand every single word of this deep dive we're doing right now. But then you step outside. Someone asks you a simple question on the street and your mouth just completely freezes.
It's the worst feeling.
It is. And why has that happened? Well, it's because we've all been conditioned to treat speaking a language like it's this mental exam, when neurobiologically speaking, it's actually a physical sport.
It really is. I mean, it's a massive paradigm shift.
Yeah, and that's exactly what our mission is today. We are taking a deep dive into the physical and psychological mechanics of speaking. We're looking at some amazing source material today to help you build a 5-minute daily routine, one that, transforms English from just a subject you study into a habit you actually live.
And honestly, it should come as a massive relief to anyone listening. Because we spend years in language classes, right? Filling our brains with vocabulary lists and grammar rules.
Verb conjugation.
Exactly. We build this massive internal database. But there's this total disconnect between storing that info internally and actually producing it out loud in real time.
Which leaves you feeling like you're failing.
Right. Or you think, oh, I just don't have the language gene. But in reality, it's just a lack of physical training.
And I think that distinction is so incredibly important to unpack. Freezing up when you try to order a coffee, it's not a sign of low intelligence. It simply means you're missing the physical execution. Because the core premise here is that speaking is fundamentally a physical activity.
Yeah, your mouth, your lips, your tongue, they're literally muscles.
Muscles. And for your entire life, those specific facial muscles have been strictly conditioned to make the precise shapes and sounds of your native language.
Right. Think about the biomechanics. Depending on your first language, your tongue has a default resting position. Your jaw drops to a certain degree.
Oh, wow. I never thought about the resting position.
Yeah. And those physical movements are practically set in stone after decades. So when you suddenly attempt to speak English, you're asking those same muscles to perform complex acrobatics they've literally never done before.
So it's totally comparable to going to the gym. I mean, you can't sit on your couch, read a highly detailed book about bicep curls, and then expect to effortlessly lift a heavy dumbbell.
No, of course not. Your brain might know the angle, but the muscle fibers have zero conditioning.
Right. Actually, I was thinking about this. Is it kind of like a professional athlete who, memorizes the entire playbook, but they haven't actually run any of the drills on the field?
That is a perfect analogy. Simply knowing the vocabulary doesn't remove the physical barrier. When you try to speak English and it feels incredibly stiff or awkward, you aren't experiencing a mental block. You are experiencing a literal physical workout for your face.
That is so wild.
Yeah, and to make the words flow smoothly, your mouth needs to physically remember how to form the sounds without conscious direction. That's muscle memory, and that requires sheer repetition.
Okay, so if we accept that our mouths need to, go to the gym, we need to know what the treadmill looks like. How do we actually train this muscle memory? And the source points to this incredibly effective mouth training technique called shadowing.
Yes, shadowing is elegantly simple, but I will say it is highly physically demanding.
What does it look like in practice?
Essentially, you turn yourself into a real-time echo. You listen to a native English speaker, maybe on a podcast or a short video, and you repeat exactly what they're saying almost immediately after they say it.
So you don't wait for them to finish the paragraph?
Nope. You follow right on their heels, echoing them word for word.
It sounds like you're stepping into the role of an actor. Because you're not just reading text off a page, right? You're flawlessly copying their exact pronunciation, the intonation, the rhythm.
Exactly. Like if the speaker in the video says, "Hello, how are you today?" with this bright, fast-paced energy, you repeat, "Hello, how are you today?" with that exact same energy.
You're mimicking the music of the language.
Yes, the music. Absorbing that cadence is what bridges the gap between sounding like a textbook and sounding natural. The rhythm, where the stresses fall, which syllables get swallowed, is often way more important for being understood than perfect textbook vowels.
Well, wait, let me push back on this for a second. What if I'm shadowing a fast-talking podcaster and I just completely mangle a word? Or skip a syllable entirely?
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Doesn't that build bad muscle memory? Like, shouldn't I hit pause, look up the word I missed, and practice the form perfectly before I move on? Because lifting weights with bad form just leads to injury.
See, that is a very logical concern, but in the context of shadowing, stopping is actually the absolute worst thing you can do.
Wait, really?
Really. The absolute rule of this exercise is do not stop. If you miss a word, drop it and catch the next one. If you mumble a phrase, let it go. Keep moving.
So the goal isn't perfect comprehension.
Not at all. It's not about phonetic isolation either. The goal is just getting your physical mouth used to the continuous forward-moving rhythmic patterns of English.
Okay, so stopping to check the dictionary completely ruins the specific conditioning we're trying to achieve.
It completely breaks the momentum. If you stop to analyze a grammar structure, you take yourself out of the physical workout and put yourself right back into that academic mental state.
Yeah.
You lose the rhythm.
Which is the whole point.
Right. You just have to give yourself permission to make noise, sound a bit foolish in your own room, and keep the ego going. Fluency is rhythm. You can't practice rhythm if you keep hitting pause.
That makes a ton of sense. Okay, so shadowing covers the mimicking side, the heavy lifting, but eventually we have to generate our own speech, right? We can't just be an echo forever. So how do we bridge that gap from mimicking to initiating our own thoughts?
Well, this is where we bring in the concept of daily emotive phrases.
Emotive phrases?
Yeah. These are basically warm-up exercises for your facial muscles. Ideally, you do them right when you wake up. You use really simple phrases to generate your own speech, but you pair them with specific emotional states.
Like, the sources give examples of incredibly basic phrases, things like, I'm ready, or I can do it, or let's go.
Exactly. But the technique here is to practice them with distinctly different moods. You don't just recite them like a robot.
Right. You'd stand up, put a massive smile on your face and say, I'm ready, with genuine excitement. Or you slouch your shoulders, let out a sigh and go, I'm ready, in this low, grumpy voice.
Which feels a little silly, but the psychology behind it is so vital. By attaching a physical mood to the phrase, you're creating a neurological link between the English words and genuine human emotions.
Because language isn't just a sterile exchange of information.
Exactly. It's the expression of our internal physical states. When you do this, you're no longer reciting a detached vocabulary list. You're deeply experiencing the language.
It anchors the vocabulary in reality.
It makes it automatic. I mean, think about learning a new song. The first few times you sing it, you're staring at the lyrics, trying to calculate how the syllables fit the beat. It takes a lot of cognitive effort. But after singing it a dozen times, the words just flow. You don't think about the next lyric. Your body just sings it.
Oh, wow. I love that comparison.
Yeah, connecting emotion and posture to simple phrases does the exact same thing for spoken language. It bypasses the calculating brain and makes the phrase an automatic reflex.
And we can actually take that active generation of speech a step further by using our own homes. The source talks about turning your living space into a safe English zone by constantly narrating your daily chores.
Yes, designing little pretend conversation scripts while you're just wandering around your apartment.
Like you're standing in the kitchen and you say out loud, I am making coffee now, the water is hot.
It sounds painfully simple.
It does. And I mean, doing that in the middle of a crowded supermarket would definitely get you some strange looks.
Oh yeah, people would definitely stare.
But doing it in your home is the perfect laboratory.
Exactly. There's no conversation partner to judge your accent. Nobody is there to correct your preposition usage. You are simply getting your mouth accustomed to the physical vibration of the words in a completely low-stakes environment.
It neutralizes that huge spike in anxiety that usually hits when you try to speak to a native speaker.
Right, you're teaching your nervous system that speaking English out loud is a safe, normal activity.
Okay, but here's the danger, right? We can get a perfectly trained mouth. We can shadow podcast perfectly. We can narrate our coffee making effortlessly. But if our brain is still stuck playing dictionary in the background, we're still going to freeze in a real conversation.
Yes, the translation trap.
Right. If I'm still translating every single word from my native language into English before I speak, there's a massive cognitive lag. So how do we bypass that mental dictionary entirely?
Well, the translation trap really is the single biggest bottleneck in fluency. When you translate, your brain is doing an exhausting amount of heavy lifting.
It's like 5 steps just to say hello.
Literally. You hear a question, translate it to your native language, formulate a response, search your internal dictionary for the English equivalents, run a quick grammar check, and then you attempt to articulate it.
And by the time that process finishes, 5 seconds have passed, the conversation has moved on, and you just feel entirely lost.
Exactly.
But hold on, bypassing that and building a direct superhighway sounds great in theory, but it feels like a total catch-22.
How so?
Well, if my internal monologue is 100% my native language, how can I possibly just switch my thoughts to English? I don't have the vocabulary to ponder complex ideas in English. It feels completely overwhelming for anyone who isn't already super advanced.
And that anxiety right there is exactly why so many people give up on thinking in a new language. They try to do way too much too soon. You don't start by trying to debate philosophy or plan your career in English.
Right.
You start incredibly small on a micro level. You focus on single concrete words.
So when you look at a glass of water on your desk, you don't look at it, think the word in your native language, and then search for the translation.
Exactly. You look at the physical object and you force your brain to just fire the English word, water.
Or when you feel a chill in the air, you just think cold.
Yes.
Yes.
You're directly linking the visual stimulus or the physical sensation to the English sound. You're completely removing your native language from the chain. That's how you pave the direct superhighway.
Okay. And then once you master single words, you graduate to very simple phrases like, I need to go to the store, or the weather is nice today.
Or just, I am hungry. You're just labeling your immediate basic reality directly in the target language.
And every time you do that, you're widening that superhighway.
Exactly. You're reducing the cognitive activation energy required to access English. Over time, that direct access becomes way faster and more reliable than the slow, winding dirt road of translation.
Okay, so we've got the physical exercises, the shadowing, and the emotive phrases, and we're actively building this mental superhighway by labeling our reality. But let's look at the logistics for a second.
Sure.
The person listening to this right now is almost certainly balancing a job, a family, university classes, finding a solid block of 2 hours to just sit down and do focused language study. That often feels impossible.
It really does.
So if these physical and mental shifts require all this repetition, how does a busy person actually fit this into their life?
The golden rule of this entire approach is consistency over volume. Neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to form new neural connections, it responds far better to frequent, short bursts of activity than it does to massive, infrequent sessions.
So 5 minutes of dedicated practice every single day is infinitely more powerful than studying for 5 hours straight once a month.
Exactly. It goes right back to the physical workout analogy. If you do 20 push-ups every single morning, you'll see a physical transformation over a few months.
But if you do 500 push-ups on a random Saturday and then do nothing for the next month, you're not building strength. You're just building resentment and soreness.
Right. Small, regular efforts are what build behavioral habits, and those habits are the foundation of actual skill. The goal is to integrate English into the existing margins of your daily life through micro-immersion.
Micro-immersion. I like that. So you don't need to carve out a new hour in your schedule. You just layer English over things you're already doing.
Yes. Using a language app for 3 minutes while you're waiting for the train, watching a short YouTube video or a quick news report on your lunch break.
And utilizing subtitles is perfectly fine, right? Because you're still hearing the rhythm and seeing the context.
Oh, absolutely. You can put on an English podcast while you're chopping vegetables for dinner or folding laundry. You're creating a layered environment.
And one of the most surprisingly effective tips from the source material is simply engaging with English memes on social media.
I love that one.
It doesn't feel like studying at all. But you're absorbing modern expressions, cultural context, and slang in these tiny, easily digestible chunks. And of course, there's the classic move of changing your phone and computer's operating language to English.
Which is so smart. And it's crucial to understand why these micro-immersions work. A lot of learners operate under this false assumption that true fluency is impossible unless you physically pack up and move to an English-speaking country.
Which just isn't realistic for most people.
Right. But by surrounding yourself with English podcasts, memes, daily narration, and phone settings, you are manufacturing an artificial immersion zone right in your own living room.
You're constantly exposed to the language without having to buy a plane ticket.
Exactly. Your brain gets accustomed to hearing, seeing, and processing English as a completely normal, mundane part of your background environment.
It stops viewing English as this massive foreign task.
Right. It stops requiring an exhausting surge of extra effort to engage with. It simply becomes the water you swim in. And because it only takes 5 minutes a day, or just passive listening while you do chores, it's totally sustainable. You build a chain of daily momentum, and the only rule is, do not break the chain.
Do not break the chain. I love that. So we have the daily routine, the 5 minutes, the immersion. But even if we implement all of this perfectly, there is still a massive psychological hurdle that holds people back.
The fear of sounding foolish.
Yes. The relentless pursuit of perfection. Even if someone knows the words, the fear of their own accent can just paralyze them. People constantly think, my accent is too heavy, I don't sound like a native speaker, I need to keep practicing in silence until my pronunciation is flawless before I dare open my mouth.
And that pursuit of silent perfection is the ultimate enemy of fluency. You cannot wait to be perfect to start speaking, because speaking is the very mechanism that creates the perfection.
Wow.
And regarding accents, we need to completely flip the narrative. An accent is not a mistake. An accent is a geographical footprint. It's a testament to your personal history and your unique identity. It shows where you're from.
Because the ultimate goal of language is clear communication, not impersonating a native speaker from a specific neighborhood in London or New York.
Exactly.
If the person across from you understands the idea you're trying to convey, you win. That is the entire purpose of the exchange. Which actually leads us to the most profound revelation of this entire deep dive. The mechanism that actually creates fluency, the concept that your brain will follow your mouth.
This is where we look at the underlying neuroscience of language acquisition. And it completely upends how most of us were taught to learn.
It really is entirely counterintuitive, because logically, we assume the process works the other way around. We assume we need to perfectly construct the sentence in our heads first, like select the right vocabulary, verify the verb tense, make absolutely sure the grammar is flawless, and only then do we send the signal to our mouth to speak.
We treat speaking as the final exam that proves what we've already learned in silence.
Right. We view speaking as passive output. But the reality, according to the sources, is that speaking is not just a display of your existing knowledge. It's an active tool that forces your brain to learn faster and build thicker neural pathways.
Yes.
But how does that actually work on a neurological level? How does the physical mouth drag the brain along with it?
Well, it comes down to the difference between passive recognition and active recall. When you're just reading an English article or silently reviewing a vocabulary list, your cognitive load is very low. Your brain is in a comfortable passive state.
It's relaxed.
Yeah, it recognizes words, but it doesn't feel any urgent pressure to build fast access pathways to those words. It basically thinks, I don't need to prioritize this information because there's no immediate demand for it.
The brain is conserving energy.
Exactly. Yeah. But when you force your physical mouth to start making sounds and forming sentences in real time, even if you're stumbling, even if you aren't 100% sure of the grammar, your brain gets a massive, high-stakes wake-up call.
Oh, I see.
It realizes, oh, we are actively trying to communicate right now. This is a real-time social necessity.
Because the physical demand of speaking triggers a state of urgency.
Precisely. The brain scrambles to supply the necessary vocabulary and grammar to keep the mouth moving. It forces active recall. And because the brain is working under this physical pressure, it reinforces those neural connections much faster and much deeper than it ever could through silent reading.
That is fascinating.
It creates a dynamic link between the sound, the meaning, and the physical action. Fluency is literally born in the physical practice of speaking. When you make your mouth move, your brain adapts to keep up.
That really reframes the entire learning experience. It removes the paralyzing pressure of needing to be ready. You don't have to be ready. You just have to start moving your mouth and trust that your cognitive pathways will adapt to support the physical action.
It's a very liberating way to approach learning.
It really is. So let's distill all of this into a highly actionable 5-minute daily blueprint that you can start using today.
First, address the physical barrier. Start your morning with emotive warm-up phrases. Give your facial muscles a workout by saying simple things like, I'm ready, while embodying different emotional states to connect the language to genuine feeling.
Second, train your rhythm through shadowing. Find a short audio clip from a native speaker and become their real-time echo. Match their intonation perfectly and remember the golden rule. Do not stop if you miss a word. Keep the forward momentum going.
Third, force real-time production by turning your living space into a safe laboratory. Narrate your daily chores out loud. Describe making your coffee or organizing your desk to get comfortable hearing your own voice in English without the fear of judgment.
Fourth, begin paving that mental superhighway. Stop relying on the translation dirt road. Start labeling the physical objects and feelings in your immediate environment directly in English, bypassing your native language entirely.
And finally, Rely on the power of consistency. 5 minutes of active physical practice every single day is your greatest asset. Layer micro-immersion into your routine with apps, podcasts, and memes so that English becomes the natural water you swim in rather than a mountain you have to climb.
And most importantly, celebrate your unique voice and geographic footprint. Let go of the exhausting pursuit of silent perfection. Clear communication is the only metric of success. So we started this deep dive exploring that frustrating, paralyzing feeling of freezing up. The moment your brain knows the answer, but your mouth just refuses to cooperate. But if we accept the neuroscience, if forcing your mouth to speak is the exact trigger that commands your brain to build rapid access neural pathways, it really makes you wonder. If speaking out loud before you're entirely ready is the actual biological mechanism for achieving fluency, perhaps the traditional school system, which grades us on silent written perfection before ever allows us to speak, is fundamentally backwards. Maybe true fluency doesn't require us to study harder. Maybe it requires us to unlearn everything we were taught about being correct and just start making noise. What if the awkward mistakes you're so terrified of making out loud are actually the required stepping stones your brain needs to build that English superhighway? Something to mull over. We'll catch you next time.